Hi, I'm Cassie Shea. I'm so excited to be here with you. I'm an executive coach who specializes in guiding people deeper into awareness of their true desire and helping create an identity story so you can become the person who receives that desire and lives a life of true alignment and fulfillment. One of my favorite things is to take our deep desire and actually operationalize that into a plan we can work towards. On the show, I'm going to talk a lot about desire. How do we find it? What do I want? The most difficult question to answer, and talk about some ways that we can get to know our desire and allow that to speak life and process over our business decisions.
This is the Business Growth Architect Show for founders who don't follow trends, they set them. For entrepreneurs who aren't here to fix the past, but to build the future they actually want to live in. Hi, my name is Beate Gillette. I'm a Palisades fire survivor, strategist, and the entrepreneur behind a multi-million-dollar tech exit to the gates. And every week, I bring you the fire, real guests, real strategy, and the real talk on how to control your mind, move fast, and create your future. This is where strategy meets energy, because your next level needs both. Let's grow. Welcome back. Beate Gillette here, the Growth Architect. Today with me is Cassie Shea, and Cassie is going to talk about something I find a really interesting concept, and it's a concept of identity and how you look at your identity and how that kind of like affects everything that you do. Cass, I'm really excited to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited when spirituality meets a system in any way.
And today you're bringing a topic to the show that I find really fascinating. It's a topic of identity. Can we maybe just start with talking about what is identity? Like, how is identity defined?
Yeah. The way we'd start is it's the story we tell ourselves about who we are. If we are designing a new brand or designing a new company, typically we do a couple things. We name it and we create a message. We create a brand script. We create a story about the brand. And what I realized is we as leaders are the instrument. Everything we do, how we show up, creates resonance. And often we're kind of rushing to build the brand, this baby externally. And one of the missing pieces, if we have this really big goal or big dream, and we don't necessarily hit it, or we don't feel like we're quite on track to hit it, or we've taken a super severe left turn, which I've done a couple times, identity is driving that story underneath. Just like a brand script would drive the marketing efforts and the way that we talk about a brand in public, identity is driving a leader's decisions. And it drives the way we see opportunities.
The question that now immediately comes to mind is identity story. Is the identity the story? Is the story something different than the identity? Like, how do these two things even connect?
One of my friends and I were having a conversation today about alignment. How do you get into alignment with your design versus alignment with your conditioning? So to answer that question with identity as the story, I think we all have a conditioned story. The story I had was I have to work really, really hard. I need to prove that I'm valuable. As the only woman here, I need to somewhat act like a man. I mean, nobody gave me that script. Nobody handed me that story, but that was how I internalized my circumstances. And what I realized with the power of identity is now as a coach, I like to work a lot with the future. What do we want to create? What do we want to bring into life? What are we dreaming up next? And I believe the story, like future Cass, now has more impact on the present than my past self. I talked to a woman yesterday, and she has a mastermind of 9 women, and she teaches them how to invest, how to open up more doors to deals. And her goal by the end of the year is to get to 100 members in this mastermind. And then she started playing with it during the conversation, and she's like, what would it look like actually if I got 1,000 or even 10,000? Well, if you set your goal at 100, you're going to have a certain identity story of, I run a mastermind of 100 people. There's certain decisions you make. There's a way you carry yourself. There's a list of activities that become priority at that point. But if you change the goal to say, I want to actually take my work and impact 1,000 people, or I want to impact 10,000 people in the next month, You'd have to radically change how you show up, how you lead, where you place your time and attention. You'd also have to change your belief in yourself. You'd have to change the story from I'm operating a small mastermind or I'm in the startup phase to, wow, I'm bringing enterprise value into the world and I'm going to show up in a different way. So when I say identity has a story component, I think it's fluid because we can change it. And I think a lot of us operate from our conditioning versus our design. Like we operate sort of the playbook we feel like we've inherited instead of realizing we have sovereign power to create a new story about what's possible for ourselves.
So then would it be fair to say that there's a story I tell myself because it's the story I was taught, I believe, that's the story of my life. It's the reason why I am who I am. And you say the minute I understand this concept of an identity, now I have the power to define what this identity is, but it typically is not who I am today.
I have a lot of agency over that identity. Like I understand that identity isn't fixed. So when it comes to the really big goals, especially when it comes to work or things we're dreaming up or want to creatively birth into the world, a lot of times the identities that we've been given, the identities that are fixed, we might feel a low sense of agency. Things like my current economic situation or my education level. You know, I inherited this path. Like this is where I am. This is how much success I've been able to hold up until now. It becomes a set point. And I believe if we want to create something extraordinary, we want to move in a big way to create something different and new. The best lever, a lot of us that are high achievers would make a plan. We'd create a spreadsheet. We'd seek a mentor. We'd figure out the path in a linear way. We'd know, I need to reverse engineer the steps to get there. But I think the spiritual alchemy, or at least the invite of possibility, is what if we change the story about who we are first? Because that story is going to inform how we see the future and how we take action.
So in order for me to change that story about myself or how I see myself, so you said something about you work a lot with desire in the future. I think desire is connected to purpose. So take me through sort of this process of if I say I want to achieve something, how this concept of identity helps me manifest this and get there faster.
The first question I always start with for every client, regardless of age, stage, how many years they've owned a business, what their income is, the first question I always start with is, what do you want? It can be a very difficult question to answer. In fact, it's probably one we come back to again and again in coaching that gives the most resistance. And it's interesting because a couple of things that I realize get in the way of answering the question of what do I want. One is mimetic desire. It's this idea that there's sort of this collective desire. When I was young in my career 15 plus years ago, the whole goal was to get to a 6-figure job, right? Like didn't matter what you did or how happy you were, how good you were at it, or how good the job was.
The matrix demands it. Yes.
6 figures. And then I got 6 figures and I was like, well, shoot, now what? Like, this is a really terrible situation. I don't even like this. But I didn't have a filter because I was swept up with the mimetic desire. 5.5 years ago when I started my job, the new mimetic desire is, oh, you have a new company, you have to hit $1 million. You're worth nothing. It doesn't matter if you have multi 6 figures and you work 10 hours a week doing something you love. Like, that's all BS unless you hit $1 million. It's mimetic desire at work. So part of the conditioning, I think, with answering this question, what do we want, is actually stripping away the noise, the external, questions, noise, perceptions, perhaps other people have put on us, our upper limits, what we feel like we deserve. And also the mimetic desire, like being able to say, like, I want what I want without any justification. The other thing that gets in the way of answering what I want or gets in the way of desire is shame. I think guilt is actually sometimes really helpful. Guilt is, oh, shoot, I did something bad. I want to make a repair in this relationship, or I want to take full responsibility for my side of whatever just happened. Shame is, I am bad. So if guilt is a sometimes helpful conscious reminder, oh, I did something bad. Shame is, I am bad. And shame can get in the way also of what we desire. I think it can blunt our desire because we're carrying around this concept that I'm not enough. Or I need to build my dream to prove that I'm okay or prove my enoughness.
Mhm.
And so once we're able to answer our authentic and true desire, then we build an identity story around that. So for example, I was going to give one that's personal, but I feel like I'm very much in flux. So I'm doing this work on myself. There's been like multiple iterations. One I can go back to that's fresh is in the beginning of my career, I just exited a W-2 role where I was managing director at this large media company. And I immediately started coaching other women in high performing tech roles. So I coached women at Amazon, Facebook, Google, IBM, Slack. And it almost felt like corporate PTSD. I was like, oh my gosh, we're having the same conversations about executive presence and conflict, and this doesn't really fulfill my soul. Like, I'm happy because I'm making my own income and I'm on my schedule and I'm coaching, but I'm not really doing the work that brings me alive. So my next identity shift was to actually take on the identity of creator. I am a creator and I'm creative, to really own my creativity. And then I asked, well, what would that identity story do different as a coach than what I'm doing now? 'Cause I don't feel like I'm being very creative. I feel like I'm painting by numbers. Like I already know all the answers to these questions. My creativity feels very dull. And so that creative identity led me to shift my focus to coaching entrepreneurs because I love being closer to the creation cycle, to the unknowns and also the delights of bringing something to life or to light for the first time. And so that's one way that my own identity transformation affected how I started building my business. And that was the point actually where I started making multiple six figures in a year, was when I actually took on the identity that I'm a creator. So it wasn't an identity story linked to, I need to make more money. It's actually, I deeply want more fulfillment and I'm feeling like something is a little misaligned. And that was a really big shift for me about 2.5 or 3 years ago to start owning my own creativity and then attracting and magnetizing and working with people who are highly creative as well.
So you said the question, what do you want, is, I think, the most difficult questions for anybody that walks through my door because they've never thought about it. It's not a question that's being asked. Because when you're deep in the matrix or in the hustle or in the grind, whatever you want to call it, you do what you need to do to survive, to get there, to buy the car, buy the house, to take care of the kids, to send them to private school. I mean, there's just this nonstop lineup of things we have to achieve. Why do you think people have a hard time knowing their desire or knowing what they want? What's in the way of that? Because we have to remove that first to get anywhere.
I think it's both specific and unique and also somewhat universal. I think mimetic desire plays into it a little bit. You said the matrix, I would call it the checklist, like that checklist of I need the perfect marriage, the perfect home, the perfect kids, the perfect car, the perfect place of worship, like whatever it is. Like I need the perfect country club membership. Like I actually do need that. Like I really do want that. I don't need it. It would be fun to have. But there's this.
Can we explain the concept of nomadic desire? Because you've now said it multiple times. I want to make sure our audience knows exactly how you refer to it and what the context of it is.
Yeah, it's the herd mentality. It's the collective wish, like what everyone else is thinking or wanting.
The
And
Joneses.
scientifically,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
Joneses, and scientifically, we are influenced highly by what the collective desires. I think another way to say it is like keeping up with the Joneses. But you almost wonder, like, why? Like, was that actually me, or was that sort of an idea implanted in me?
Yeah, and I think we see this all the time. It is fascinating to me when you hear these, well, the general opinion on this is, and I said, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know if it's true? And there really isn't an answer to that per se. So I believe that in order to get to this question, and the reason, we're asking this question today for our audience is to clarify that in order for you to get anywhere, you got to get this question answered. And that answer to the question is going to become your identity to a large part. Give me like an example on how do you take somebody through this now? So you ask them, what do you want? And they go like, I want to make a lot of money. I want to take nice vacations. And we're back somewhat in the matrix of of the things that they know how to say because that's what everybody else says. And then, of course, they're going to say happiness, and I want to have a lot of sex, and I want to have great intimacy, and I want to have a great family. So these are like all check, 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 check. But that's not necessarily desire. That's a want. What's the difference between a want and a desire?
For me, it's a really felt sense in my body. So I'm going to go with that in terms of running it through your somatic wisdom. And I hope that's an invite for everyone listening. For me, the difference between a want and desire, a want is something, it almost feels transactional. It's like something I know I can get. I really want to go on an all-inclusive resort vacation to Mexico. So I just booked that with the travel agent, and I'm going next January, and I'm so excited. I want a vacation where I do absolutely nothing. Think about nothing, plan no meals, take a book. That was a want. It's transactional. I can get it. It's sort of easy to align resources once I'm clear on that want. I think a desire, I feel in my body, the response to this is a desire is something that's sort of pulling me from the inside out. I believe a desire is somewhat of a divine compass back to our purpose. And I think about desire as, or how do we find that? Like, how do we, as an archaeologist, take like a feather and a fine tooth comb to really find that desire if it's elusive to us? I think part of it is having a mirror, having a guide. I know you do this for your clients. It's hard to read the bottle when you're in it. It's hard to read the label on the outside. And so having trusted guides, you have to pick them with such care because some people superimpose their desires or their wants onto you. And so that's tricky. But in terms of desire, how I feel it in myself is like a creative spark, like that very baby beginning spark on a fire that can develop and burn into something bigger. But I feel desire is the creative pull, it's the creative fire from the inside out about something that wants to almost be created through me. Whether that's birthing a book, a business, a baby. I think there's so many different ways that desire comes to fruition, sort of out of our body into the world. And so I would say desire is that whisper. It's usually not loud. That whisper of the thing you can't totally put down. You can't totally ignore. Your soul is telling you there's something to this. I've had my business. Desire is the whisper on the wind, so faint we almost might not hear it, but so unignorable, it's almost like itching your skin. Like it would be uncomfortable to fully ignore it, but it's subtle. And I don't think we're used to listening to the subtleties of our soul. I don't think we're used to pausing enough to hear those.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this like whole idea of rattling down the list is almost too easy because then I'm just going by what is commonly acceptable. But a deep desire in manifestation and spirituality, we talk about this a lot, is you cannot manifest anything that has no desire to it. So talk to us now as we are uncovering this desire. I think that in this intuition or this inner voice is that the reason I need to listen to this is I cannot create unless I feel this desire. Talk to us about that. Because now we have the desire, an idea of a desire. How do I make that big enough, intense enough so I can use it for manifestation and creation?
Yeah, beautiful. For me, I put it into my body. I find it very difficult to just do it on paper. So I'll take you through the body part and then the paper piece as a way of hopefully breaking down this into a few steps. But for me, the path back to my greatest joy, to amplifying desire, is thinking about when I was a little kid, what made me feel the most alive, the most joyful, the most energized. For me, it's dance. I loved to dance as a little kid. Loved it. Still love it. And 2 years ago, I was in a deep period of transition from a relationship, from my business perspective. So I went to the dance studio 6-7 days a week. I learned 12 different styles of ballroom dance. I taught ballroom dance by the end of the year. I competed. I realized that was taking the joy right out of it, sucked the joy right out to make it performative. But me ecstatic dancing on the beach with my own headphones, at sunrise with a cup of tea, that's where I feel really alive. That's the desire amplification for me because I want more of that childlike wonder and joy and creativity to express the joy of creation without needing utility. And I think there's utility to that. Like the irony is there is a utility to that because that's lighting up these creative centers. It's giving me interesting ideas. Today I was in the ocean at sunrise, 7 a.m., no wetsuit. And that to me is the meditative practice of I'm still wearing a sweater because I'm freezing like 7 hours later. But that's to me the meditative practice of truly letting go, floating, being held, that experience of oneness with creation. Like to me, it's like meditation on steroids. So I put my dream and I desire on, I try it on. I go to dance class, I ride a horse, I get in the water. Whatever brings you that level of childlike wonder and joy, just creating for the pure pleasure of creating, it starts to light up your right brain. And all of our anxiety lives in our left side of our hemisphere. But once you keep amplifying the right side of the brain, you're going to start making connections. You're going to see insights different. And so I think that's to me one of the most important creative strategies if you're on this desire birthing path and how to amplify your sense of desire. When it comes to how desire gets connected to identity. So when I ask a client very simply, like, what do you want? I'll ask them 7 layers of why. Why do you want that? I want a really nice house. Really nice house. I want a big house that I feel like as a sanctuary and I can have all my people there. And the 7 layers of why, if you get to the bottom of it, is belonging. Mm-hmm. I want to cultivate and feel a sense of grounded belonging. And so because I know that now, I can start looking for moments of grounded belonging in my current sphere, in my current locus of control before I manifest that big house. So I'm tuning into the frequency, the vibration of why I want that thing. And now I'm really aware and I'm owning the emotional capacity that I can continue building in order to welcome that thing in. So that's one piece of it. And then the last piece I'll say in terms of the want, the desire, the embodied creation, the joy of creating purely for the love and the pleasure of creating. The next piece is to do an audit and ask yourself, what is your current identity story? How are you showing up? What are the hats you're wearing in your business? Who are you being? And if you were to go down this list of desire, and if all of that were true, what would your identity shift to? What would be true? What would be different about my identity? And so if anyone's listening along, the 3 steps would be starting with what do you want? Who are you showing up as right now? A really honest assessment with blameless discernment, no judgment. How are you showing up right now? And if what you wanted was true and already real and here and present, who would you be then? And that becomes the compass, the way to shift. Instead of goal attainment, it's really goal alignment, goal embodiment.
And is it not true that unless you carry that, the goal cannot be achieved because you have to shift into a different identity, desire to achieve this next level? Unless you want to hustle, work really hard and kill yourself in the process. So I do believe that there's 2 aspects to this. Nothing wrong with the herd mentality and being like the Joneses if that's what you find desirable because I know a lot of people that have achieved a lot following that. However, I also know that a lot of these people get there and then they have the money and the tools and the toys and the house, but they don't have purpose. And then they're in the quest of finding the purpose. Or you can do what I think is really emerging, and that's why we're doing this show, is how do you combine both of them as you're building? So you're not missing out on the life in the process. Is that how you look at this, or is there anything that you want to add or change to that assessment?
I love how you put those words together. For me, I'm exploring the phrase aligned ambition as a way of describing exactly what you said. There's nothing wrong with the having of things. I think the acquisition of things without the deeper purpose, without the deeper identity alignment and I think conscious agency that you know what you're creating and you know why you're creating it. Maybe that is for some people, I want a house, 2 luxury cars, a boat. Their purpose is to use all of those items to be more present with their family because their parents weren't present with them. The story I hear a lot for people that want to create wealth. And so then my question becomes, okay, How do we make an identity story where you're present with your family now? Because your family doesn't need the house and the boats and the toys. You could rent a pontoon boat for a couple hours. Your kids are going to have a ball of a time. I just took my dog on a pontoon boat the other day and literally his face was blowing in the wind. I don't think he's ever been happier. It didn't take $1 million for me to be present with the doggy. That trip cost less than $200. So looking for those ways to be in alignment now versus waiting for the external reality to tell us we're allowed to be happy and be satisfied then. I think that's one of the big differences.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the operational roadmap, as I know you've called it before, really comes from the desire, and the desire determines where we want to go. And I think you made an important point. The desire really has to be aligned with where it is that you want to go as a human, as a person, as an individual, and whether that's with kids or dogs or partners, nobody really cares. Your desire is your desire, and you uniquely own this. So finally, I wanted to find what maybe we can leave our audience with one thought that they have to watch out. What typically is in the way of doing this? Because I think that the minute we make a change or we decide to make a change, inevitably the resistance shows up. Talk to us about that. How do they prepare for that, and what do they need to prepare for?
Yeah, it's a great point. One of the quotes I hold on to deeply is opposition occurs in all things. The tension of change creates opposition. Resistance would be another great word for it. I love the book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And it talks about, it's like 200 pages just talking about resistance. Do the thing anyway, create anyway. So if you haven't picked up that book, that would be a good one. It's like you could read a page a day just to keep yourself motivated. But in terms of the question of what would come up with opposition, I think there's two layers to it. One, I think there's a moment where shame comes into the picture, or some version of I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not ready enough. I'm not prepared enough. Whatever the enoughness is, it all comes down to I'm not enough. Whenever I heard a voiced desire, that's almost inevitably the next resistance or roadblock is I'm not enough. And for some of us, that's been the beating drum that's allowed us to achieve a lot. That I'm not enough proving energy has forced us to achieve, because we want to tell that proving energy we are enough. And so to learn to actually let that energy go, I would say love it out of your life, not force it to go, because that'll just amplify it more, but to truly love that not enough energy out. For me, that's looked like going to therapy. I'm a big fan of coaching and growth in the future. For me, the best pairing has been actually going to therapy to deal with that story of not enoughness and to learn new tools and to have different levels of support. I would say the second thing with desire, a resistance that comes up, is when you take a tender baby, fresh, fragile desire and you tell a ton of people about it, including sometimes our families, because they see us in this specific way. If it's a work desire I'm talking about, I think about like my parents see me as their daughter. They always will. And that's a blessing and a curse, because they don't see sometimes the emergence. Or as I've been at dinner with certain friends that have known me for, 15 plus years, and I tell them my new desire, my bigger dream, a bigger idea. There's been a few times where people just lean back in their chair and they go, Cass, you're just delusional. You've always had delusions of grandeur.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh no. Tell me that is not so.
I'm still dear friends to this day because I know the heart was in the right place. But the comment was so misplaced for a creative entrepreneur. And so I learned, share your desire in rooms where people are dreaming big. Community is the currency, I believe, of exponential growth. And if you're around people who are doing this work, who are dreaming bigger, who are desiring from this place of soul alignment, and also expanding literally their body and possibilities into more, get around those people. Because if you stay with people who are shrinking and who live the status quo, or who only see you as the cats from 15 years ago, if that comment had been allowed to germinate and take seed in my soul, there would have been some dreams I gave up on. And my direct response, though, at the time at the dinner party was, if I'm not a little delusional for me, who's going to be?
Oh my God, that's just rough. So yeah, as we wrap this up, I do agree. I would really don't share much of what I do or what my goals are with any of my immediate family because maybe subconsciously have learned my lessons many, many years ago that the what's normal for me or what is my reality is not the reality for many other people. And you put yourself in a position of judgment. And if we look at it from the perspective of when somebody says to you, that is delusional. And let's say you said, I'm going to take this to $500,000 this year and I want to be maybe a $1 million company, or you say, I want to impact 1,000 people, whatever the numbers or the impact statement is. And somebody says that's delusional, then you know exactly that they will never reach that because it's not possible for them. But that's where they stop. And so it just verifies something for them, nothing for you. And then that's easier to overcome. Cass, this has been a really great conversation. Fascinating stuff going this deep. Where can we find you if our audience wants to find out more about how to find their identity and maybe break through it and step into their true desire? Where do they go?
Absolutely. I hang out on LinkedIn, so come find me, Cassie Shea. Also, coaching.cassieshea.com would be my website. You're welcome to send me a note there. And I have a gift for everyone on the show I'm going to send is 3 layers of starting to ask your own desire. What's beneath the surface? And I have some guided journal prompts that you can do on your own following the show. So that way you can take this and start getting some insight and creating some embodied awareness about your desire and where that's leading you in terms of your identity journey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here today. So thank you for coming to the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And that is it for us for today. So you heard it here. It's all about how do you figure out your true desire, and that becomes your new identity. And with that, you get to pursue what you want, knowing kind of like who you need to be and what you need to feel to achieve a particular outcome. And with that, we say goodbye. As always, if you know someone who needs to hear these words today, please send them a link to the show and share, like, subscribe to the podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time. That's it for this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show, Founders of the Future. If you're done playing small and ready to build the future on your terms, subscribe, share, and help us reach more trailblazers like you. And if you're serious about creating, growing, and scaling a business that's aligned with who you are, schedule your Uncovery session at uncoverysession.com. Lead with vision. Move with purpose. Create your future.